How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson, and for this video you find me standing right in front of the 2022 Audi E-Tron Sportback. First and foremost, I want to thank Audi for loaning me this vehicle for the week so that I could provide this review. And in this video, I want to give you my detailed rating on 5 categories: the exterior, interior, technology, power, and driving experience, so that you have a better idea before you buy. And at the very end of the video, I'll give you my overall rating on this car. So there's a lot to talk about in this video. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the exterior first. So here it is. This is the E-Tron Sportback. There is an SUV version, and the most noticeable difference here is that the back end has been shaved off a little bit. This is the same concept as the C40 to the Volvo XC40 or the BMW X4 to the BMW X3. It's basically just a more athletic version of the SUV. So you sacrifice just some utility for a little bit more style. And unfortunately, these coupe or sportback designs are usually about a couple grand more than the SUV counterparts. Up front, you find the Matrix design LED headlights, and these have automatic high beams. The Euro spec version of these things are more clever, where you could blank out some portions of the headlights so that you don't blind oncoming drivers. But the US version is basically just like an automatic high and low beam. This example has the black optic package, so it comes with the gloss black exterior elements like the grille. The black Audi rings and the badges can also be yours for an extra charge, and you can see the S-Line badge on the grille right there. And part of the prestige package, you get the 22-inch titanium finish wheels, and you also get the dynamic orange brake calipers. And I love the dynamic orange behind the E-Tron badge as well. It highlights the charging port right there. And there are 2 charging ports on this car. The left one, or the driver's side, has the AC and DC, so if you want to go fast charge your car, you have to use the left port. And on the right side, there's only the AC version. And on the back end, you find the unitary LED taillight with dynamic turn signals. So all in all, I'm going to give this a rating of 8 out of 10 for the exterior. It is a very attractive coupe design, sharp and tasteful looking features all around, and it looks like a proper luxury car. Now let's jump inside, and you can see that the interior has a very clean and modern presentation, and it looks good whether the car is on or off. Inside, you can see that Audi uses a lot of screens. There's a 10.1-inch infotainment display, a 12.3-inch instrument cluster display that Audi calls Virtual Cockpit, and the HVAC controls are all integrated into this 8.8-inch screen, which I think looks really good, but it's going to depend on your tastes here. There is still a physical volume control knob here, which you could slide left and right for your tuning function. This tester that I have here has the black leather interior, and there's this really nice wood grain in here, which I think looks pretty tasteful. There's ambient lighting along the center console and the door cards, and I really love the gear shifter design on this thing. There's a nice palm rest, and there's a component that you can toggle forwards or backwards, and a parking button as well. As for the seats, they are heated and ventilated. They're very comfortable, and the steering wheel is also heated, as expected of a luxury car. I also like the physical controls on the spokes. The scroll wheels for both the volume and the menu controls are nice. The cruise control functions are still on the stock, so if you're used to Audi's layout, you're going to be happy here. Personally, I like those cruise control functions to be located on the spoke, the way it's done by other car manufacturers. As for the second row, there's plenty of leg room back there at 39.1 inches, but if you have a third person back there, I think it's going to get a little bit tight. Regardless, they're going to have a pretty good view with the panoramic sunroof, and there's a small modern touch with the touchscreen for the HVAC controls. As for cargo space, there's 27.2 cubic feet of space behind the second row. Fold that down and you'll get 54.5 cubic feet. This is actually not a big sacrifice over the non-sportback model, which has 28.5 cubic feet behind the second row and 56.5 cubic feet with the second row folded down. And this being an EV, there's a small compartment under the hood. It's big enough to hold your cables and then some other things. So for the interior, I'm going to give this a rating of 8 out of 10 because this looks like a proper luxury car, and I love the amount of nice materials in here, and also the screens are a nice touch. Now let's talk about the technology, and let's begin with Audi's MMI system. And like I mentioned before, it's split between the 3 different screens. So you have the 10.1-inch infotainment display, the 8.8-inch HVAC display, and the 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster. All of the screens work well well together, and they have a cohesive design style. These two screens have a haptic feedback design so that you don't accidentally press on something, but you can turn that feature off. But I like to have that feature on because you could swipe between different pages, but you won't accidentally trigger any sort of the apps. You have to physically push into the screen to pull up that app. I like the general infotainment layout because it's all clear and straightforward, and you can also modify the home screen, which is very good. I will just say with these all screen displays, they look really nice, but it doesn't take a very long time for it to get a little crummy looking and dusty. Thankfully, Audi has provided a nice cloth so that you could just wipe that down and keep it looking clean. And as expected, this MMI unit also has a built-in navigation system, and that corresponds really well to the digital instrument cluster, where you can turn the entire display into a map. There's also a heads-up display in this car, which is always a nice addition. Just remember that if you have polarized sunglasses, it's not going to show up as well. And lastly, there's also wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto in this car. As for the stereo system, this has a Bang & Olufsen premium sound system with 3D sound. This is standard for the Prestige package, and I think it sounds really, really good. As for safety tech, there's plenty of sensors in this car. There's Pre-Sense Front, which will detect and scan the road in front of you and will automatically brake to help you avoid a collision or make it less bad. There's also adaptive cruise control and lane departure warning. There's also blind spot and rear cross traffic alert, which I think should be a standard in all cars. And lastly, there's a 360-degree camera view, which is helpful in all sorts of situations. And you can pull it up with this button in the center console. So for the tech, I'm going to give this a rating of 9 out of 10 because this has every tech feature that I care about, as well as some nice safety features. And as a bonus, I like how the displays all have a cohesive design. Now let's talk about the power. This is an all-wheel drive EV, which means that it's going to have big power, and it's also going to be pretty heavy. This has 2 electric motors, one for the front axle and one for the rear axle, and it's going to generate 402 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Curb weight is at 5,800 pounds, which for a frame of reference, the Toyota Sequoia that I just reviewed also weighs about the same, and that is a full-size 3-row SUV that you can off-road. So this is a really dense car, and the size is completely deceiving. Regardless, 0 to 60 can be done in 5.5 seconds, which is very quick. But this is pretty much on par with other luxury cars, electric or gas. I will say that maximum torque can only happen under boost mode, and that will be accessible to you depending on the state of charge of the battery and whether it's up to temperature. And as for the battery, this has an 86 kilowatt hour usable battery size, and it has a 225-mile all-electric range, which is a little bit on the short side and not very good if you plan on doing a lot of road trips. But if this is going to be your daily driver and you're just using it to commute to work and you have a reliable form of charging at home, then this is still going to be okay. And if you have access to a level 3 charger at 150 kilowatts, you can go from 5% to 80% in about 30 minutes. Or if you have a 240 volt source at home, which is a level 2 charger, you can go from 0 to 100% in about 10 hours. And as for efficiency, you can expect about 77 miles per gallon equivalent, which sounds really high, but compared to other EVs with all-wheel drive, it's not that great. So for power, I'm going to give this a rating of 7 out of 10 because this has big power numbers, but it's all hampered down by the big weight. And all of that means is that it's going to have average EV performance, but it's still pretty damn quick compared to normal gas combustion cars. Now let's talk about the driving experience, and let's start with the ride quality first. The ride is very good in this e-tron. It is a very quiet and serene ride. I love EVs because there's no sound or vibration coming from the engine bay because there is no engine. Then you have the luxury levels of sound deadening and the fact that it's a very slippery exterior, about 0.25 coefficient of drag, which isn't the best but still very good. All of that means that the road and wind noise is going to be minimized. This also has an air suspension which can raise and lower depending on your driving modes. So there's a total of 3 inches of movement. It'll lower the suspension when you're going faster so that it can reduce the cross section and reduce the drag. But when you need to go off-roading, you could go into off-road mode and it'll raise the suspension to give you 8.2 inches of ground clearance. I half expected the 22-inch wheels to be pretty bad for ride quality because of the extremely low profile tires, but it's actually not bad at all. It still provided a very good ride quality over rough bumps. Handling wise, the e-Tron feels pretty athletic. Like all EVs, most of the weight is lower on the vehicle, which provides pretty good stability. The all-wheel drive performance does provide the car with plenty of grip, and the steering response is also quite good with plenty of feedback. And as for braking, the mechanical brakes and the regenerative aspects of the motor has a nice blend to it so that braking feels more natural. And there isn't a one-pedal driving mode. There's only 3 levels of recuperation in this car. There's normal, a bit, and just a bit more, but not enough to do one-pedal driving like other EVs. So for driving experience, I'm going to give this a rating of 8 out of 10 because this has very good ride and handling qualities. And on top of that, the steering is quite nice as well. So overall, I'm going to give the Audi E-Tron Sportback a rating of 8 out of 10 because this thing has the good looks with the Sportback design. Inside, there's a modern looking interior with plenty of technology, and there's also plenty of power, with the only downside being the limited range. I want to hear your thoughts on this, so please leave your comments down below. If you want to watch another great EV, I suggest you check out this link over here. Let me wrap it up right there. My name's Hanson. This has been the 2022 Audi E-Tron Sportback, and I'll see you in the next one.